I mean, why would you eat your own shit, let alone 3 times in a row? Hey guys, how's it going, Dudey? Here I am back with another video. Today, we are delving back into the world of prison stories. Before we begin, if you could please hit that like button, subscribe, share the content, hit the notification bell, that would be absolutely amazing. Okay, so I expressed in the last video that I did on prison stories, it's a place I hope I never end up. It just terrifies me. I think the idea of being in prison, I have nightmares where in my dream I've murdered someone and I'm going to prison for the rest of my life the next day. I just don't think it would be for me, you know? So that is why I will stay on the right side of the law, and if you are kind of thinking about breaking the law, maybe some of these stories will keep you from ending up in the clink. So these stories I found on Reddit and online. I have 6 of them for you today. So without further ado, and in no particular order, let's check out some prison stories. Okay, so this was posted on Reddit 9 years ago by Somewhat Enlightened. A guy named Psycho comes up to me and says, "They say you're a smart guy, so I thought I'd see if you could help me." I said I could try. He says that he has an infection and he wants to know how he can treat it. So I tell him to just fill out a Form 9 for sick bay. I always call the infirmary sick bay. He says he can't because they will think he was trying to harm himself and he doesn't want to end up in solitary under suicide watch. So I ask him what his infection actually is on and what happened. Turns out he has been shoving the pencil lead from the pencils we get to write in his cock so he can feel things better when having sex. I think the kind of emoji that he put on his Reddit post sums it up perfectly. I got hold of some betadine for him. He was rather thankful. I also ended up calling him Pencil Dick. That could have ended up very badly for me, calling Psycho Pencil Dick, but sometimes in jail you have to act like you don't give a fuck. I was moved to another pod 2 weeks later and never found out how it ended. Last I heard, he was out and had a girlfriend, so I imagine it ended okay. So yeah, starting off a bit strange and different there. To get sensation back into his penis, he decided to insert pencil lead into the tip. His next one's from a user called Grandad's Lady Friend. My friend works at a prison hospital. A guy was sent there because the guards found out he had swallowed a balloon of heroin. They were basically just waiting for him to pass it, and when he did, he immediately dug it out of his own shit and ate it again. So they waited for him to pass it yet again, watching him more carefully this time. But when he did, he somehow fought and got to his shit again and ate it for a third time. I have no idea what this guy was trying to accomplish by continuously eating the balloon again, but it almost burst inside of him and could have killed him if he had been able to swallow it a 4th time. I mean, why would you eat your own shit, let alone 3 times in a row? This next one is from a deleted user. Former corrections officer here. Remember the Texas 7? That's the prison I worked at, Connolly unit, although that escape happened 6 months after I quit. I was tasked with taking an inmate to the hospital about his abdominal pains. Said inmate was a child molester. Turns out someone shoved a jar of peanut butter up his ass. Saw the x-ray with my own eyes. Bricks were shat. They have a special lockup for the sex offenders now because the general population tormented them no end. This kind of saddens me. If anyone cares to hear the story about why I quit, just ask and I will elaborate. Now I'm guessing it saddens him because the sex offenders were taken out of general population, not that sex offenders get horrible treatment in prison. But an inquisitive mind called Disgruntled Platypus said, "I'm intrigued. Why?" in relation to why this former prison guard left the occupation. And so said prison guard goes on to say this: "I worked in administrative segregation, where the worst of the worst and the gang leaders were put. In ADSEG, as they called it, there were 6 pods, A to F. In E-pod were the psychos deemed unworthy for general population. In E-pod section 1 of 3, there were what were affectionately known as the doo-doo warriors that had no problem flinging feces like baboons. It was during feeding time, one of the inmates had his slot open to receive his his late night meal, motherfucker has a milk carton like the ones in school, filled with a nice little concoction of piss and shit, and he puts his arm through the feed slot and throws it right at me. Nice little piss shit mixture lands on my shoulder and cascades down my body. Had I not been aware enough to take a step back, it would have hit me in the face, or even worse, gotten in my mouth. At that point I said to my supervisor, I'm going home to change. An hour drive home. Supervisor says, like hell you are. And I say, I'm not an inmate here, kiss my ass. Not much to say after that. I left and only went back for my last paycheck. I have a few more stories if anyone is interested. This story online really blindsided me because it kind of highlights the reality of being in prison. I suppose seeing people getting taken advantage of all the time and then not caring was the worst. New guys would come in and get ripped off on trades and stuff. People with social/developmental issues just getting their food taken from them. Also, the psychology of people without goals gets weird. What was worse was just becoming part of that world. There are so many people there that have their rights taken away from them on a regular basis and just don't care anymore. They choose to place value on being able to make others fear them. They stop thinking about the world beyond the walls and they just get wrapped up in all the weird culture of the place. There was a day I was feeling proud of myself because I was running around organising contraband trades, setting up poker games and owning things like hardcover books and the only dice in the place. In that moment of pride, I realised I had started to lose my mind. It's honestly hard to remember the months in there because most of the time, nothing's happening. Nothing. You've read until you can't stand it. You've slept all you can. You can't play cards because your cellie is sleeping. So you stare at the ceiling and wait. It's so weird to realise you're doing the equivalent of a timeout for months. You're not waiting for 5 minutes, not waiting for 5 hours. You're waiting for a day that is months away. Just waiting. And therein lies the reality. You are just waiting for the day that you are released, and it could be weeks, months, or even years, and in the process just trying to survive. Back to Reddit now. We're gonna hear from Tar Heel Terror. So I had to spend a week in jail for DUI, and it was certainly a weird experience to say the least. I'm a former Marine and college graduate, so the COs kind of treated me a little different than everyone else in there. None of the inmates could believe I was in there and were initially kind of mad at me, but after a while they became cooler. Anyways, the two craziest things I saw in there were A, the number of delinquent child support cases and how they continued to rack up charges for child support while awaiting trial, thus digging themselves deeper into debt, and B, the utter lack of education amongst criminals. By the end of my 7 days, of the 40 guys in my cell block, I was reciting letters from loved ones for 9 or 10 of them. It was really, really weird and depressing. These fellas had been receiving letters from their loved ones and stuff, but I guess didn't want the other inmates to know they couldn't read, and since they all knew I was educated, they would pull me off to the side and ask me to read their letters to them. It was a humbling experience that I won't ever forget. And last but not least, it goes as follows. My family came to visit me on Christmas Day, the first year I was in. I was so ashamed that I had a little breakdown the next day and punched the cinder block wall inside my cell. One of the guards invited me to come talk to him. I made the mistake of thinking he was a friend and was talking about the meaning of life and why things happened. He decided he thought I was suicidal, which I was not. The next day, I was shipped off to a maximum security prison in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, stripped down naked and given a Kevlar smock to wear. They keep the temperature down at 60 degrees, which means that you have to stay huddled in a corner to conserve body heat. Because this was observation, I wasn't allowed to have anything. Nothing to read, watch, etc. Naked and cold for an entire week. If you'd like to see what this is like, turn your thermostat down, then take all your clothes off and sleep on the floor of your bathroom with the light on for 6 days straight. No showering either. Wasn't offered a chance to clean myself. That's how I spent New Year's of 2007. Observation is not some kind of psychological treatment, it's punishment and mental torture. Sleeping and singing to yourself is all that you can do. Too cold to do anything else. Brutal. Now I try go out of the country for New Year's Eve every year. So there we go. We had some perspective from prisoners and from corrections officers there. Very, very interesting and quite honestly rather disturbing. What do you think? What was your favourite story of the 6? Do you have any stories yourself? Please don't hesitate to comment down below. I really do appreciate it. And if you like this kind of content, you would like me to do some more prison stories, then I implore you to hit that like button and share the content, and of course subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't done that already. Also, just a heads up with my podcast, ATMA, the Allegedly Possibly Maybe podcast, we have my cousin's partner coming on who was a corrections officer for a number of years. It's going to be a great episode. If you're watching this after December, then chances are it has already been released. So go over and check that out, as well as checking out my clothing. Thank you so much, guys. Please like, share and subscribe. Also, I have a Facebook page now. Go over to Facebook, type in Dudey Rhino, hit the like, react and all that good stuff over on Facebook. Thank you so much. I'll see you very soon. Sweet one. Geese.